Larry Goldberg is coming to us tonight from the deepest of the deep South. That I don't mean necessarily the furthest south, but I think most people would consider where you are to be the deepest of the deep South. You're in
Birmingham, Alabama.
Birmingham, Alabama. Now, if I remember right, it's either in Birmingham or it's in I forget the name of the other town nearby, where Martin Luther King's home is. I had an experience there, Larry. I mean, I had an experience at that place. We had a very good docent walking us through there. We sat down. I mean, she was amazing. She had been there at the time when Martin Luther King was there, and I think still lived on the block or something anyway. And we sat down at that kitchen table, which looked just like my kitchen table when I was growing up with the marbleized Formica top. And that's where he made the decision to stay with it, to continue on. And holy
I went to see Martin Luther
chilling,
King.
chilling. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I went to see Martin Luther King.
I did, yeah, I think you had mentioned that as well. Yes.
When I was here in 63, 64, we drove from Scarsdale, where I was living, to New Jersey, because he appeared at get this university somewhere in New Jersey, one of the big schools. And man, we had to park about a mile and a half away. Trudged all the way there, waited in line for 3 hours. And then we got to stand in the back of the hall. They had microphones outside. There were people, huge crowds outside.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was that was quite a religious experience. I mean, the man was a spellbinder. God, I wish he were here today.
Yeah, for me, it was a little unusual because, of course, I was not a fan back in the day.
Really?
No, because, I'm conservative through and through, from birth to death. And at that time, Martin Luther King was not somebody that the conservatives were appreciating. We might have been all for civil rights and led the civil rights movement through the 60s and 70s. But by that point, things had gotten, a little topsy-turvy in terms of states' rights and decisions that were being made. Anyway, so for me, over all those years, the changes that I've gone through in my own thinking about things and the changes really that the country's gone through and how they think about things. So for me to have a religious experience in that room was a little different than it would have been maybe for somebody who'd always felt a different way.
How many years after his death?
How many years after his death was I there?
Yeah.
Oh, we were just there 6 years ago. Yeah, 7 years ago.
I mean, I was a Kennedy.
Yes.
And so Martin Luther King fitted into that sense of liberalism.
Absolutely. Yes.
And really now Bobby Kennedy had his differences with Martin Luther King.
Right.
And Bobby Kennedy was a little used Martin King a little bit, I think, cynically. But it was part of that liberal sensibility that honestly, I think now the working party, the Trump party, really represents more than, and I think Elon really is representative of that, perhaps more than Trump himself.
Mm-hmm.
I think Trump would have been or was a Kennedy Democrat,
right,
which is now somewhat right of where, quite a bit right of where the Democrats have landed.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, that's a case of the party leaving rather than,
right.
moving. Although, to be honest, I was voting for Reagan already in Reagan's time.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Because Reagan really represented the continuity of Kennedy in my book. Because Reagan was a Democrat in the time of
yes.
Kennedy.
Yes. Yes. He
And
was,
famously said the Democratic Party left me. I didn't leave the Democratic Party.
right.
So many people are saying today. We shouldn't talk politics because I'm sure.
Yeah, let's go ahead. We'll take a look because it was a good news Friday. This is,
Yes,
the
it
show is
was.
well stated today. It was up over 16 at one point today. Tesla was, and ended up, I think, up 13, and last time I checked was doing okay in the after hours. But Bradford Ferguson thinks that he's now, the number one. He should be on MSNBC now because first he picks lemonade, and then yesterday he said there was support on Tesla for an upward move. Said that on my channel last night. So he must be thinking that he's got all the stars are aligning for his predictive capabilities. So anyway, but
Brad is a very, very savvy stock picker and stock manager. I don't really like managing stocks. I like to develop a thesis and then buy the stock or not.
Right. Yes. Okay. So anyway, I was just thinking about the different things. I put up a list today on X of the different reasons why Tesla might have gone up today. And I just want to go through these with you, Larry, because I think they do open up reasons why it might go up Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. All right. So number one.
But wait a minute.
Okay.
Gary Black started the day telling us why it's going down.
I've already
Maybe being unfair to Gary. I mean, I don't every day read his postings, but he'll post and he'll say, "Oh, it's going to do this."
right.
I think Brad's pretty cognizant of what the market is thinking. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yes. I like Gary. He's one of the only two people that I subscribe to, which AJ is the other one on X.
I subscribe to both of those guys as well.
Interesting. Look at that. All right. So number one reason was technical. That was what Bradford says. There was support. There was other people that were talking about some kind of a triangle or something that I totally don't understand. But there was a lot of people saying that there was a real launch place for Tesla at this point. I know that I don't think you're care much about the technicals any more than I do, but do you have any thoughts about the technical aspect of where Tesla is or was or might be headed?
Well, I think don't underestimate the impact of BG2. The podcast, Brad Gurley and
Yeah, no, we'll talk about Brad Gurley and Brad Gerstner in a minute because I think that's really big. We'll bring
don't underestimate their impact because that pot dropped. Was this morning or last night? I'm not sure.
I think last night or yesterday sometime.
Yeah, and they made a very strong case. Very strong case.
Very strong case, yes.
It dropped yesterday, actually. I do know that. And they made a very strong case of why Tesla may be the winner in the self-driving stakes and how close we are to self-driving. By the way, I drove all the way to Boca Chica, and now I'm pretty much close to being home. Done it all on FSD.
Right.
What a difference it makes.
Right.
I've just been on the road for 12 hours.
No big deal. All right. Yeah. So they're not only did they, talk about the believing it's going to be the winner, but they talked about also that I guess Brad Gerstner took his entire investment in Uber off the table, took the entire $1 billion and put his mouth where his money, or his money where his mouth is. Bought Tesla shares with that $1 billion.
Well, that can move the stock. I mean, can move the stock. I mean, I know the stock moves, tens of billions a day.
Right.
But so much of that is technical buying and selling of puts and calls. But when you come in with a new buyer, a new institutional buyer, and they're putting in, those 10-figure numbers, it will move the stock.
So, but what about the impact of these guys and their statement.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's what I said a little bit earlier. I'm saying in addition,
Right.
the fact that they're buying so heavily will have an impact on the stock. And remember, when those guys speak, there are a lot of ears listening and joining the cause.
Yeah, no, I figured that one of the reasons that it went up today was because of my program and the amazing people that I have on my program, and more people listening to it. So that was the one that got the most, yeses on X today. But but Brad Gerstner, even more so than you and I, he has shown that he's a great investor. He knows AI backwards, forwards, inside. He knows computer, I don't know. Maybe you know it better than he does. I can't say for sure, but he seems to.
No, these guys are in a different league to me.
So yeah, so when Brad is talking about it from an AI standpoint and from an investor standpoint and from the standpoint of somebody who's been with Uber almost since the beginning, and all of a sudden he's like, no, this is a transitional, this is a moment.
Yeah. And they've got a lot of research people that are doing a lot of good work. I mean, I've seen some of the work that they've done. And so it's impressive, 𝐓𝐡𝐚𝐲 is a serious fund. They know what they're doing. I think they do it very well.
Well, okay. The next one on my list was a continuation of the Trump impact. That it had kind of maybe that $90, $100 that seemed to be the Trump impact had maybe kind of, smoothed off. There was a top. There was only so much people were going to say that was important. But I've been saying all week that there's way more to that impact than, in fact, you and I may have even talked about that on Monday, about the different levels of this impact, and that is I think it's going to just keep percolating up. And people are going to go, oh yeah, there's also this, and oh yeah, there's also this over here. And
it will wane. It will wane for a while. I mean, it's there. It continues to buoy the stock, but it will wane over time until we see concrete action.
Yeah.
And look, the nature of politics is that when Doge makes its first recommendations, there are going to be a lot of naysayers. There's going to be a lot of controversy.
Right.
It can move the stock one way or the other, and a lot depends on what they say.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't think there's an American who doesn't honestly, in his heart of heart, his or her heart of hearts, believe that there shouldn't be a paring back of the flaccid state of the federal government. We should all be aware of just how serious things are. We should all be aware of just how badly this country is being governed, and not necessarily just at the executive level. I'm not pointing the finger at a party. I'm saying this bureaucracy that we've created that was never envisaged in the Constitution, that may not even be constitutional, to be honest. This entire massive bureaucracy does need to be reformed, and it could. I don't understand why it's even a political issue.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it should be. Everybody should want this.
Now, I will tell you this. I've spoken about this before. I don't want to overdo it. The big spend is not in the military and in the general government.
Right.
It's in healthcare. That's in desperate need of reform, and it's in the retirement, in Social Security.
Right.
That's where the big numbers are.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it could have an impact on next year's budget if we pare down, military spending. Could cut down the budget if we pare down general government expenditure. But the big numbers are in these, these figures that just keep paying out. And the thing about it is so much of that money is wasted, not in Social Security as much as in Medicare.
Right.
And then, so that's one thing I would point out. And I know I've been singing this tune for a while, so people are getting bored by it. But the other area that I would say is very critical is state and local governments. Now, let me tell you, people talk about the hiring by the federal government being out of control, and we are at a peak.
Mm-hmm.
We're at a peak that rivals anything since 1990.
Mm.
You know, and was it 1980 or 1990? Not, I may be. Anyway, the point is, we're at a peak,
Right.
but it's 2 billion people. 2 million people.
2 million. Yeah.
2 million people. The real problem in government employment is in local and state and local governments. You know how many people are employed by state and local governments?
I don't actually.
20 million.
3 million. Okay.
20 million.
20 million. Oh my goodness. Oh wow. Yeah. No kidding. Well, you can understand where the services are needed.
Well, you've got police forces. You've got so much replication at the state and local, at the local levels, at the multiple levels of local levels. But you have a huge number of people that are probably unnecessary. I will check my numbers for tomorrow, for Monday nights, but it's in that area. It may be that the 20 million includes the 2 million in federal, but the point is that's the big number.
Right. Another one of the things I thought might have impacted the stock price today, believe it or not, I don't think that my channel does impact the stock price, and I don't believe that 𝐄𝐦𝐚𝐲 does either, but he did bring up something today which might have caught some fire. Sometimes he gets something that everybody else is missing, just like you and I do. And he was saying, Elon has now several times mentioned a family van by saying, okay, to other people, saying that if he's going to promote large families, he needs to produce a family van that people can buy. And that there might have been some people that really love the hardware. They're looking for that next piece of hardware.
A new concept in a vehicle is 5 years from a vehicle. Even if Elon deems it correct, it may be, if you do a balls to the wall project, it could be 3.5 years, but nothing under that. So I don't understand why it would move the number.
Well, concept, in other words, just the idea. Now we don't, people don't sit there and do what you just did.
Yeah, I think that's grasping for straws.
All right. Number 5 on my list is that somebody suggested this, insiders know that the judge will improve Elon's pay package.
Insiders may be wrong. I don't think the judge is going to approve it. This is hopes and dreams. I'm so skeptical. Could be wrong.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. Number 6 was FSD version 13 FOMO. There's a lot of reporting, even by Gerstner, that they've got a copy of version 13. He said they were testing it.
Look, version 13 has been hyped so much. I don't think there's any additional hype today. I mean, we heard 1,000-time improvement from version 13. It didn't come out in the time scales that it was supposed to come out. We haven't seen it yet. So I don't know. I'm skeptical.
All right. How about short squeezes and other options play, being that it was a Friday? I think this is an
Yeah.
options trading day. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no doubt that there are still there are still, I was going to say still people, but I decided perhaps to rephrase it. There are still some idiots who are short Tesla. I mean, guys, it's time to, just call it a day. I wonder how much money over time has been lost on shorting Tesla. Now, I'm sure that there's some people who've been lucky enough,
Yeah.
in a short period of time to have made a little bit of money shorting Tesla.
Well, it did go from 410 down to 110. So there was some opportunities to make money if that in that run.
Right.
Isn't it?
You had to have the courage to do that.
Yeah, no kidding.
There were bumps up during that period. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Jim Cramer had positive comments. Usually people think that that's a negative, but he was positive. I guess that was either yesterday or this morning. He was like, yeah, he's got a big audience.
Yeah.
How about the Kim Kardashian impact?
Now that could drive some interest. I mean, how silly was that?
All right, now I'm going to come up with an all of the above thought. The amount of publicity,
Yeah,
between all of what we've just talked about, I have to believe.
And I don't think we've seen the end of the impact on the Trump Elon relationship.
Right.
So I think if you take all the above, what we're seeing is a change of attitude towards Tesla. Yeah, and it's happening throughout. And we're not getting the bombs dropping.
Right.
You could add in the improvement in the regulatory environment, which is kind of the second order effect of Doge. There are so many good things happening for Tesla. But the point is, the real point is, there are so many catalysts
yet to come
that are in play, in process in the coming year. Now, they could disappoint this quarter.
Sure.
It themselves a very high bar. They could disappoint. Elon and Trump could fall out. It's happened before.
Sure.
A lot of negative things can happen, but these are really positive times.
Yeah. Yep.
All the above.
So do you think Elon is going to buy MSNBC?
No.
I had to throw that out there, Larry. I mean, it made a pretty interesting set of memes today. A lot of people were having a good laugh over it. But I would agree with you. I don't think that he has any intention to buy MSNBC.
Why buy a dying category?
Yeah. No, I don't think
The value add.
All right. I want to switch subjects now, although I'm going back to Brad Gerstner again, because the first part of that pod, which people should go look at if they haven't seen it yet, the first part of that pod, they talked about maybe they might have also impacted another stock today, because they actually brought home a little bit of what all this conversation was out there on LLMs and how that might impact NVIDIA. And while their conclusion was that NVIDIA is probably fine, at least for the next 5 years, they're probably going to sell everything they can make. That was their conclusion, which may or may not be other people's conclusion. But their conclusion was that the storyline was important to pay attention to. And so I wanted to ask you, because you know way more about this stuff than I do. They were talking about limitations on the actual ability to use these computers to manage all this data.
No,
All right, okay.
the point that they were trying to drive at is that we've believed for the last couple of years, and it's been a mantra,
Mhm.
that the pre-training, but what
Right.
people call the training, but it's really pre-training. The pre-training that's done, and this is what NVIDIA chips are used for, and this is
Right.
what Tesla are doing at scale, not for LLMs, but they're doing it for self-driving at huge scale, and which AI are doing at huge scale. That retraining, we were led to believe by the theoreticians that the improvement would rise with the scope of the scaling. Now the chatter in the market is that we seem to have reached a limitation, some form of limitation.
Right.
Some sort of top. Others say we haven't, but the evidence at hand right now is that it may be that there's a limit, that the more training you do doesn't necessarily equal the more qualitative your AI is.
Right.
In simple terms.
Mhm.
So we don't. The jury's out, although there seems to be some evidence of it. I have a different view somewhat, although it aligns with Brad's conclusion, that I have a different view to the consensus and to Brad's view.
Mhm.
I don't believe that the current form of LLM is going to lead us to, general AI.
Right.
I think that the evolution that has to happen, and in a way, Brad alluded to this, and in a way, they kind of pointed to this. I believe this notion of pre-training and then inference is going to go away in the new world.
Mm.
And there's going to be a unity between those two. The human brain inference is accompanied by training, and training is accompanied by inference.
It's not two separate things.
Right.
I think, Larry, let me see if I can tell you something that I told people for years and that we all probably know in our heart of hearts. I learn more when I'm teaching than when I'm researching.
That is exactly the point. Bingo.
Right.
Some of the realizations that are made in the time of inference.
Yeah.
Now, it is quite true that the pre-training is done on source, and it's not often on inference that you resort to the sources, although you do, but not as much as you do as when you're studying for an exam, you're training.
Right.
Pre-training.
Right.
You're writing the exam, you're on output. That's pure inference. But when you're studying for that exam, you may be doing some inference, and you may be actually checking the source, maybe saying, the source is not right. Let me figure this out.
Yeah.
Oh, I've discovered something new. And that new needs to be added to the pre-training. That new can't be lost.
Right.
When you then, come back and do some other inference.
Exactly.
So this notion of these two separate processes, I think we're seeing the beginning of the breakdown of that wall and the breakdown of the theory of the LLM. And I've been saying this for a while, but it kind of relates strongly to what Brad was saying. I don't understand fully what that implies from a theoretical point of view, but I do know from when we build decision models, for example, which are deterministic, But we may have components that are probabilistic, and those components really are dependent upon so many other factors, and we are constantly testing those and improving those and testing those and improving those in a constant, loop.
Right.
And that's why I think the LLM and the process of inference is going to evolve. Now,
Okay,
the bad news about that is that infers that we're going to need massive amounts of memory
right.
during inference. And so the architecture that we've created may not be appropriate to where we're going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And memory chips may become more important. How did we switch sides? Memory chips may become more important in the new world than processor chips.
Right.
But, I mean, that's just by way of it's switched again. Did your image?
No, mine's not switching. So
anyway, all I'm saying is that we don't know much yet about what we're doing.
Now, Brad also said, which I thought was interesting, that he didn't think, it was a very brief statement, a lot of people might have even missed it because it's so brief, that he didn't think that these limitations applied to what Tesla is doing with regard to the more real world data that they're collecting and creating.
Yeah, I heard him say that, and I wanted to say the word yet.
Okay.
I think it's going to impact us.
I see.
I think we're going to discover that. See, in a way, it's even more pertinent in our case, because right now, once the training is done or the pre-training is done and the model is then put into the car, that the car cannot do anything but follow, but be driven by that model.
Right.
And I can tell you there isn't an FSD driver who hasn't said, God, I wish it wouldn't keep making the same mistake.
Yeah.
And so the opportunity to capture that mistake and add it to the model. Right now, what has to happen is that error has to be sent back, has to be added to the training, to the issues that are dealt with in the training. Then training has to be done to address that issue, and then it has to be uploaded to the car. That's a weakness.
Yeah.
And we'd love to get past that weakness.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, like, for instance, in your odd neighborhood that you've talked about so frequently, where the computer was having so much trouble, if there was a memory component and it could memorize the right route, the
memory component is not the issue. I'll tell you why the memory component is not the issue. Because the way this model works is that it doesn't have a memory. It has a process. It has a concept of what the car would do in that circumstance because it's been trained to do that so many times. It understands that particular circumstance does this. But in that particular circumstance, it's doing the other. What it needs is many, 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 many good examples of doing the right thing and not the wrong thing. Those examples can be generated.
Yes.
And they can be generated offline. They can be generated. But if the driver is correcting it each time, it would be really good for it to be able to learn without having to go back and generate the correction and so on. So
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I did think that it is possible that Brad uh, contributed to NVIDIA was down like $5 today, which I was like,
Yeah,
why
yeah,
would that even be? And and again, Brad didn't bring up this issue. The companies themselves are the ones that are announcing that they might be reaching some kinds of limitations.
yeah.
But he kind of made it real. He kind of made it to me. It was kind of like, oh, now I get it. Now I see what they're talking about.
Now, honestly, here's my view.
Yep.
I don't think we've got halfway towards where we're going to be. There are so many discoveries to be made, so many learning, so much learning to be done. And everybody thinking that, we've had the magic GPT moment. I think we have many, many more moments to go.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll look forward to following along as these moments expose themselves. Let's take a quick look, Larry, at what happened today in case there's
Yeah,
anything of value. I think there's a couple of things that are pretty interesting in there. So, as I mentioned, Tesla was up 13. After hours, another 90 cents. So that 89 cents actually, if somebody might catch me
what
on,
was the volume, Tesla's volume today?
I don't ever look at the volume, Larry. I know I should.
I should.
I never pay attention to the
It's
volume.
very telling. When you have volume, it's very telling.
Yes, I know. I know this. I should improve my analysis by getting the volume in there too. I know that Dylan always mentions it.
But only when there's a big move that it's interesting to
One
understand.
one person said there was a big spike of volume early on in the day, so there might have been a whale, coming in R2. So the Dow was up 426. And that was a pretty good day for the Dow. That puts it at all-time high by a lot.
Yeah. I
The
heard that.
Nasdaq was only up 31, S&P up 20. But the Nasdaq had been down and recovered. And the Magnificent Seven for the second day did not do well. So people are talking about a rotation again into the Dow and into the smaller stocks.
85 million was the volume, which is not awesome volume.
Okay, all right. So it wasn't very powerful today.
Now, for a Friday, one would expect high volume
Okay,
anyway.
all right, okay,
Yeah, over 100 million becomes interesting. 120 million is.
okay, all right, okay. Glad to know that. Um, so then we have the big number. The bonds didn't really move. Um, Down 0.2%. I mean, I'm sorry, 2 basis points, but that's good. It's right direction at least.
Yeah.
Oil moved up again, based mainly, I guess, at this point on Ukraine because, you know, hypersonic missiles have been shot by Russia without a warhead over to the Ukraine, and the Ukraine is shooting off missiles guided by NATO countries into Russia. This is not good, Larry. We could do a whole show on that. I'm quite confident, but
Yeah.
it's
I'm unworried.
you're unworried. Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I'm so glad to hear that. Okay. I'm not sure whether that gives me comfort or not, Larry, but I'm glad to see that you're not worried. Natural gas, down 6% today. Apparently, there was a big drawdown this week, which is why it went up like 7 or 8% yesterday. And the winter is coming, and it's looking like it could be a colder winter, Larry. So if you're thinking about investing in natural gas, there's a little bit of information for you to have at your fingertips. Gold up 43. So it's making a new run.
$3?
$43, back up to 27.
Is that a record?
Oh, no, 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 no. It was up 20. What was the record? Let me look. Oops, I just did that wrong.
I don't mean a record lift in a day.
No, no,
This is a new high.
No, I don't think it's at a new high, Larry. I think, well, maybe you're right. 27.18 might,
Sounds like a new high to me.
yeah, just a second here.
I would think it to be a new high, but you know, I mean,
It's
Bitcoin
close.
is at 97.
It either is or it's close, and my computer is taking like forever to think about it. But at 27.18 looks like it might be a new high.
Yeah. And Bitcoin is at a,
Yeah, we were gonna
by the way, for your listeners,
yes.
Tesla's profit on Bitcoin, paper profit on Bitcoin after the
Oh,
profits and losses it's
yeah,
already taken.
yeah.
That's what is well over $1 billion now.
Over $1 billion profit.
It
Nice.
may even be as high as 1.1 billion as of tonight, depending on Bitcoin's price, closing price.
Interesting. Interesting. How about that? Well, that certainly turned out to be a good. I'm sorry. Now I'm sorry that they sold the little bit that they
Yeah,
did.
they did. Yeah. Oh, a lot.
Yes, it is. I just confirmed that is an all-time high for gold.
Thank you.
Yes. And my computer finally decided to tell me. Silver has not returned to that 34 level, but it is up 1.49 to 31.5. Copper down a little bit. Your favorite canary in the coal mine is, but it very high, almost $4. Well, $4.08. So over $4. And the Bitcoin question, 98,474. So not an all-time high yet for today, but it's been 99.1, I think. I think it was 99.1 was the absolute high.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so we're getting close to that 90. Oh no, 90. No, I'm wrong. Look at that. It was closer than I thought. 99,790 was the high, the all-time high. So
My little Bitcoin investment has done quite well, but my nephew, I mean, he is rolling in it.
oh yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, yeah. Yes,
That's,
I don't know if you heard, Larry. I've decided to learn about Bitcoin. I am reading the book, the Bitcoin Standard, and I am going to be explaining the little bits of knowledge that I gain on X and on here from time to time, and hopefully getting people that know more about it like you to help me if I'm wrong.
I look forward to learning from you.
But I did listen to Sailor. I listened to my first Sailor interview yesterday, and I thought I walked into a room where people were speaking the wrong language. I barely understood a third.
Yeah, I didn't understand. I mean, I didn't understand Sailor. I mean, all he's got is a company with a bunch of Bitcoin. Why wouldn't you buy your own Bitcoin? I didn't get it yet.
He just borrowed another $3 billion to buy more Bitcoin.
Or maybe if you want to be very leveraged on Bitcoin, that's the way to do it because it saves you having to borrow the money yourself.
Yeah.
So you don't have the liability on your balance sheet. I guess that's the only explanation.
Yes, but he has a bigger theory. You know, he has a more global theory of how the United States should eventually own, I think, around 20% of all Bitcoin.
But what is it? How does that change his company?
Not his company. It's how he believes the world should play out.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that I don't understand
His theory, yes.
his company. I don't understand his company. It's just one massive Bitcoin.
Right.
Well, you don't need his company to own the Bitcoin, so I don't understand it.
Why are you paying triple? Why are you paying triple the value?
But if you buy the Bitcoin yourself,
Yeah.
there's no intermediary.
No, that's what I'm saying. So he's got, I think he has $33 billion worth of Bitcoin, and the company's now valued at 100 billion. Well, you'd understand that if he was making something and he was going to make more later, but why would you pay triple the value of the asset if all it is a holding place for that asset?
Maybe somebody will explain it to me one day. I don't get it.
Okay, Larry. Well, any other thoughts as you head home, about Tesla or about the world in general? Anything else that's bugging you or making you passionate?
No, every time I go to Boca Chica, I have what amounts to a religious experience, and I see that rocket take off. I was saying to a friend earlier, I was posting to a friend earlier that, you know, it is a religious experience because man is reaching. This is the first time that man is really reaching to go beyond this planet. And that rocket is such a personification of that reach, you know, the power of it, the size of it, everything else. So it is something that you have to experience.
Yeah, I intend to. I really do want to get down there, but I'm glad I didn't go this time because I want to see 𝐄𝐦𝐚𝐲 catch it.
Oh, yeah. It is exciting. That no doubt, that's very exciting. That's very
And maybe
exciting.
catch the ship too, you know, separately, both, you know.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
It's
It'll be
coming.
an opportunity.
All right, Larry. As always, thank you for joining us on a Good News Friday, when in fact the news, for those who care about Tesla stock, was good.
Really good. Yeah.
All right. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.